Okay, picture this. You're standing really high up, maybe at a window, looking out over a city. The whole world's laid out below you.
Mm.
And then, just for a second, there's this weird pull, not, a conscious desire or anything, but this strange, almost physical urge towards the edge.
Right, like a magnetic feeling almost. It's unsettling.
Totally. And then, bam, instantly, another voice just slams on the brakes. Nope, absolutely not. Where does that voice come from? That immediate stop sign?
Yeah, what's really fascinating is that internal clash, isn't it? That
Yep.
split-second battle. One impulse pushing you towards, well, whatever it is, and the other one is this absolute command.
Exactly. It makes you really question the whole setup inside our heads. What is that internal rule maker?
Is it just conscience? Like a rational sense of right and wrong we pick up along the way?
Or maybe something deeper, something kind of put there, like that Freudian idea, the superego, this invisible director pulling strings shaped by society by keeping a lid on our basic urges.
Yeah. And if we think bigger, this whole idea of an internal watcher really makes you ask what freedom even means, right?
Oh, so?
Well, what happens when that voice, the one that's supposed to guide you, actually turns into a cage? When you take away the outside rules, but somehow feel even more boxed in?
Okay. That's the real tension, isn't it? That's what we should dig into.
Definitely. Let's start at the beginning, maybe.
Yeah.
The genesis of these inner commands.
Right, like, think back to being a kid. It was just a constant stream of, no, wasn't it? Don't touch that stove. Be quiet. Getting told off for speaking out of turn.
All those external rules, parents, teachers,
Yeah.
authority figures.
Yeah, and they don't just disappear when we grow up, do they? They somehow move inside, that nagging voice in your head. A lot of the time, it probably started as your mom or dad saying no.
Precisely. Freud had a term for this interjection. It's this amazing psychological trick where we absorb those outside figures, their rules, their authority, and they become part of us. They form the bedrock of this superego.
But it's not just a straight copy, is it? It feels like it gets louder inside.
That's the key thing. It's not a simple recording. The superego often takes those original rules and cranks them up. It doesn't just want you to follow the rules. It demands perfection. It's often way harsher than the original rule ever was.
So it's not just don't touch the hot stove. It becomes this inner voice whispering that any risk, anything off the beaten path is fundamentally bad, and you should feel guilty just for thinking about it.
Exactly. It's this relentless push towards an ideal, often an impossible one. And it's not just about keeping you in line. It wants to dominate your impulses.
Dominate. That sounds like a battle.
It is a constant internal struggle.
The superego isn't your friendly neighborhood advisor. It's more like a really demanding internal boss.
And that sets up this huge internal conflict, right, between these really basic drives. Wasn't it Eros and Thanatos?
Spot on. Eros, the life instinct, that's everything pulling us towards connection, creativity, sex, just life affirmation.
Okay. And Thanatos. That's the flip side. The death instinct. The pull towards aggression, destruction, even, chaos. Or just returning to an inanimate state.
Wow. So that's quite the drama playing out inside us all the time. We're constantly caught between these massive forces.
And the superego. It steps in as the referee, often a very, very strict one. It decides which parts of Eros and Thanatos are acceptable.
And the unacceptable parts, the aggressive urges, the forbidden desires, what happens to them when the superego says no? They don't just evaporate, sure.
Oh, absolutely not. They get pushed down, repressed,
Yeah.
but they don't vanish. They morph.
Morph into what? Like they go underground?
Sort of. They often resurface as guilt, or that low-level hum of anxiety you can't quite place, or shame.
That feels backwards. So the more we try to bury these bad feelings, the stronger that internal police officer, the superego, actually gets.
The paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
Repressing the impulses paradoxically fuels the very thing doing the repressing. Like trying to shout over a storm, you just end up shouting louder yourself. Repressed urges feed the superego's power through guilt and anxiety.
Okay, that makes sense on a personal level. But what about bigger picture? Does this apply to whole societies?
Absolutely. Think of culture itself as a kind of collective superego. Societal, taboos, laws, moral codes, what are they really?
They're structures to keep everyone in line, I guess, to regulate behavior on a huge scale.
Exactly. They mirror the function of our internal superego, but for the whole group. Civilization, in this view, is basically built on repression.
Built on repression? How?
It's a grand compromise, a negotiation between our raw, individual desires, the I'd, that impulsive part, and the needs of the group, enforced by this collective superego. Our conscious self, the ego, is stuck trying to mediate.
Can you give an example of that trade-off?
Sure, think about monogamy. Biologically speaking, are humans strictly wired for lifelong pairing? Probably not universally.
Right, there's a lot of debate about that.
Yet, many cultures hold it up as the gold standard. Why? Well, it offers social stability and think families, inheritance lines, reducing conflict.
Okay, makes sense for society.
But it requires suppressing other natural inclinations,
Yeah.
maybe towards variety or different connections. And when those feelings inevitably pop up,
Guilt. Massive internalized guilt. Even if you don't act on it.
precisely, that guilt isn't just about breaking a rule, it's manufactured by the cultural norm that you've absorbed into your own superego.
And what about other things? Like anger. We're taught from day one not to show raw anger, aren't we? Use your words, calm down.
Exactly.
Hmm.
But does telling someone to calm down actually make the anger disappear?
Huh. Rarely. It usually just makes it simmer. Or come out sideways.
Precisely. That suppressed anger doesn't vanish. It leaks out passive aggression, sarcasm, maybe envy. Sometimes it even turns inward, manifests as physical symptoms, anxiety, depression. A lot of what we call neurosis could stem from this exact tension.
Okay, this is starting to sound a bit like power dynamics. If superego enforces cultural rules, who makes the rules?
Now you're getting to a crucial point. Who benefits from these norms? Authorities, political leaders, religious figures, even, the media. They play a huge role in shaping the moral landscape.
How does that work?
Well, think about consumer culture.
Yeah.
Advertising constantly tells you you're not quite good enough, right? You need this car, this phone, this look to be happy, to be worthy.
Yeah, it creates this constant dissatisfaction.
And that dissatisfaction, that feeling of I'm not enough, gets internalized. It becomes part of your superego's script, pushing you to consume, which benefits, well, the sellers. Those in power can subtly shape our internal compass.
It's like the superego gets programmed from the outside. And religion, too, you mentioned, the ideas of sin, judgment. That creates a really powerful internal framework.
Immensely powerful. Even if someone stops actively believing, those early lessons about right, wrong, and potential punishment can linger deep within the superego structure. It speaks in absolutes.
So the superego acts as a go-between. It allows control, but indirectly.
Exactly. It's incredibly efficient. Instead of needing constant external force, people start regulating themselves. We become our own internal police force, constantly checking if we're meeting these internalized standards.
It's like that idea of the panopticon prison, where you might be watched, so you behave as if you always are. We're both the guard and the prisoner in our own heads.
That's a very apt analogy. The superego is the ultimate internal surveillance system.
So, okay, this feels important. For everyone listening, maybe take a second right now. Really try to hear that voice in your own head. What does it usually harp on about? What are its go-to criticisms? Its commands?
Yeah, just noticing it is a huge first step. What's the content of your internal rulebook?
Because it's probably not just one thing, is it? It's likely a mix.
Oh, absolutely. It's a patchwork quilt. Scraps of childhood scoldings sewn together with bits of cultural beliefs, parental expectations, things you picked up from friends, from media. It's unique to each of us, but built from common threads.
And here's the really weird twist, maybe. In societies like ours, where we prize freedom, individual choice, does that make the voice louder?
It's a fascinating paradox, isn't it? You'd think more freedom means less internal pressure, but often it's the opposite.
Why?
Because the sheer number of choices, the constant pressure to make the right decision about everything, career, relationships, what to eat, how to spend your time, it amplifies the superego scrutiny. Are you choosing correctly? Are you optimizing your life?
Oh man, yeah. Analysis paralysis, or making a choice and then instantly regretting it, wondering if the other path was better. The self-criticism ramps up.
Exactly. So increased external freedom can paradoxically lead to feeling more constrained internally. Freedom itself starts to feel like a kind of tyranny, a relentless demand from within. More choice equals more potential for self-judgment.
Wow. Okay, let's circle back to that idea of civilization as a kind of trade. You said we trade instinct for order. Can you unpack that a bit more? What exactly gets traded away?
Think about early humans. Survival often depended on immediate gratification, hunger, sex drive, fighting off threats. Building a stable society, living together in large groups, required putting the brakes on those immediate impulses. You can't just take what you want or attack whoever annoys you.
Right, chaos would ensue.
So we suppress those instinctual drives for the sake of social cohesion, for safety, for predictability. That suppressed energy, that pool of unexpressed instinct, That's what Freud basically called libido, this psychic energy source.
Okay, so we bottle up this energy, but where does it go? You mentioned sublimation earlier.
Yes, sublimation is the healthy-ish way society encourages us to channel that blocked energy. Instead of raw aggression, maybe you pour that energy into competitive sports.
Okay, like channeling aggression into football.
Exactly. Or intense romantic longing. Maybe instead of stalking someone, you write poetry or compose music, transforming that raw feeling into something socially valued, even beautiful.
So art, science, sports, a lot of culture could be seen as just sublimated instincts.
In this view, yes. Even something like a primal fascination with fire could be sublimated into becoming a firefighter, a controlled, socially useful expression of that initial impulse. Our culture is, in many ways, built on these redirected energies.
That's kind of mind-blowing that creativity comes from bottled up drives. But you also said this whole process has a dark side, right? This repression isn't free.
No, it comes at a cost. While necessary for civilization's progress, this constant suppression, this internal battle, creates fertile ground for neurosis, anxiety, and that pervasive feeling of dissatisfaction, modern discontent. We're always negotiating between what we want deep down and what society allows.
So this deep conflict, Eros versus Thanatos, it's not just inside us, it plays out in culture too.
Oh, absolutely. Look at romantic love, the intense pull of Eros, connection, life. But how often is it tangled with Thanatos? Jealousy, possessiveness, control, sometimes even violence? Think of Othello.
Right, love and destruction side by side.
Or think about war. On one level, it's politics, resources, but underneath, it's a massive release of collective aggression, Thanatos unleashed, fueled by things like loyalty, a form of Eros, connection to the group, but also hatred, dehumanization.
And art, does art wrestle with this too?
Constantly. Art explores the heights of love and beauty, but also the depths of despair, loss, mortality. Think Van Gogh's intense yearning and mental anguish poured onto canvas, or Shakespearean tragedies finding beauty even in death and destruction. Culture is always trying to grapple with, to balance these two fundamental forces.
It's like society is perpetually trying to walk this tightrope between creation and destruction.
And the superego, both individual and collective, is the balancing pole or the enforcer, trying to keep us from falling off entirely.
So the superego is the internal cop enforcing society's rules.
Pretty much. It internalizes those cultural norms about sex, about money, about success, about emotion, and uses guilt as its main weapon. Marriage regulates sex, sure, but it's the internalized guilt about straying, even in thought, that really keeps people in line, much of the time.
And religion uses sin and redemption.
Political ideologies impose values that become common sense, leading to conformity. It's all aimed at regulating behavior from the inside out.
And guilt, which feels so negative, is actually crucial for this.
It's essential for social order in this model. It stops us from doing things that would tear the group apart. It encourages accountability, maybe even moral growth, but
there's always a but.
The psychological cost can be huge. Too much guilt, misplaced guilt. It leads to anxiety, depression, sometimes totally irrational behavior. We build civilization on this suppression, but it creates a kind of psychic debt.
Why do we agree to this deal, though? Why sacrifice so much inner freedom just to belong? It seems like a bad trade sometimes.
Because the alternative feels worse. The need for connection, for belonging, is arguably even more fundamental than the desire for unrestrained freedom. Ostracism, isolation, those are terrifying prospects for social animals like us.
So we police ourselves to stay in the group.
Think about times you've maybe muted yourself, held back an opinion, a passion, an eccentricity, because you worried what others would think. That's the superego mediating between your authentic self and your need for acceptance.
Yeah, I can definitely think of times like that. Like, maybe someone loves drawing comics, but their friends make fun of it, so they stop, internalize that criticism.
And that becomes an internal command. Don't do that, it's silly, you'll be judged. Artists, lovers, innovators. So many people face that choice. Express yourself fully and risk rejection, or conform and feel safe, but maybe lose something vital. Think of Galileo, Van Gogh. Alan Turing rebellion often comes at a terrible price.
But sublimation offers a middle path sometimes, channeling that energy productively.
It's the constructive outcome, yes. Religion, at its best, can sublimate deep anxieties into charity, forgiveness, community building. Think of the ideals of compassion in many faiths.
And science.
Science channels raw curiosity, the drive to understand, into rigorous inquiry and discovery. Einstein famously saw science as a form of refined playfulness, right? Though that same drive can also lead to destructive technologies, of course. The Thanatos element is never entirely gone.
And art, Again, like Frida Kahlo painting her pain.
Exactly. Transforming personal suffering, physical and emotional, into powerful, universally resonant images. Or Beethoven composing these epic symphonies while losing his hearing, channeling immense frustration and longing into monumental art. Sublimation fuels so much cultural richness.
So it really is this double-edged sword then. Repression is kind of the engine of civilization, allowing us to build complex societies.
But it's also the source of so much inner turmoil, unhappiness, that feeling of being fundamentally divided. We're constantly caught between instinct and reason, chaos and order, freedom and responsibility.
And the superego sits right in the middle of that storm.
Precisely. Yeah. It reflects our highest ideals for ourselves and society, but also our deepest fears about our own unacceptable parts. The challenge is learning to live with that voice, maybe negotiate with it, rather than being ruled by it entirely. Finding a balance.
Which brings us back to that final, really unsettling idea. This invisible cage of modern freedom. In societies that seem freer than ever externally, are we actually more trapped internally?
It certainly feels that way sometimes, doesn't it? The sheer weight of choice, the constant comparison facilitated by, say, social media, the relentless pressure to self-optimize, it can feel like the superego is working overtime.
How so?
Without strong external guideposts, we rely more heavily on our internal ones. And if that internal voice is harsh, demanding perfection, judging every choice, it creates this invisible maze of self-imposed rules. You're technically free, but you feel trapped by the need to always make the right, the best, the most productive choice.
That really resonates with the idea of burnout culture. It's not always an external boss cracking the whip, is it? Often it's the internal voice saying, "You're not doing enough, you should be more productive, resting is lazy."
Exactly. The superego equates your worth with your output, making it incredibly hard to rest, to accept good enough, or even to fail, without feeling intense self-criticism and guilt.
So you have all this apparent freedom, but you feel powerless, anxious, maybe disconnected?
That's the deep irony. The internalized demands become their own form of bondage, subtler perhaps than external chains, but just as confining, if not more so.
And technology. You mentioned social media. It seems like it pours fuel on this fire.
It can, absolutely. While offering connection and knowledge, it also creates endless opportunities for comparison, for feeling inadequate. Seeing curated, perfect-looking lives online can amplify the superego's whispers of, "You're not measuring up." It intensifies the pressure cooker.
So we've really gone on a journey here, from that weird urge at the window, deep into the mechanics of our inner world, this constant clash of drives, the internalization of rules, the role of culture.
And landed on this central, quite difficult paradox. Civilization, with all its wonders, seems fundamentally built on suppressing core parts of ourselves, potentially creating this silent internal prison even amidst external liberty.
So maybe the final thought for you listening is this: is that trade-off unavoidable? Is the price we pay for belonging, for progress, always going to be this internal conflict? Can we ever truly reconcile our individual freedom, our deepest desires, with the demands of culture and that relentless voice inside our own heads?
Perhaps the first step is just acknowledging the voice, understanding where it came from, that patchwork of personal history and cultural inheritance. Questioning its authority, maybe?
Yeah, really consider your internal rules. Where did they originate? Are they still serving you? Or are they part of that invisible cage? Just understanding these dynamics, maybe that's the beginning of figuring out how to navigate it all.